Pokemon for the Nintendo DS changed the world. Many fans look at this as the best era of the Pokemon series, and for good reason. The main series games on the DS had big shoes to fill following the incredible success of the Game Boy Advance, and they knocked it out of the park. These games not only have some of the best stories in the Pokemon series, but also added quality of life changes that made this game more accessible and fun for everybody. The main problem with these games is that you need to put a second mortgage on your house if you want to afford them.
Now I'm broke!
Beyond the ridiculous price of these games today, they're in the conversation for the best of the Pokemon series. Some of the most creative games in the Pokemon series came out on the DS and took the series' popularity to new heights. The DS had 9 main series Pokemon games come out for it, and each game is something special. And it all started with Diamond and Pearl. Pokemon Diamond and Pearl came out in Japan on September 28th, 2006, and in North America on April 22nd, 2007. These were the first main series games to come out for the DS and are the best-selling Pokemon games on the console. As the 4th generation of the series, this game takes place in the Sinnoh region, and introduced so many quality of life changes that to this day are still in place. Most notable being the physical and special split, which took every single move in the game and gave it a distinction between being a physical attack and a special attack. This made so many Pokemon go from good to great, and it just made sense. Prior to the DS, there were so many hardware limitations that the series faced, but with being on stronger hardware, it allowed for these quality of life changes to be implemented. One of the best parts about being on the DS was the upgrade to audio quality. This game had one of the best soundtracks in Pokemon history. So many of the songs are so memorable and dripping with nostalgia. The game begins by getting attacked by a flock of Starly, forcing you to rob an old man of his starter Pokemon. You have to pick between Chimchar, Piplup, and Turtwig, and these are known as some of the best starters in the entire series, and they're the most balanced by far. Once you beat the Starlies, you then get to begin your Pokemon adventure and explore one of the most engaging regions in Pokemon. Your rival in this game is Barry, and he is insane. He's not my favorite rival, but I can understand his appeal. His high level of energy is a lot to digest, and he doesn't make an impact like some of the other rivals in the series. When you progress through the game, you run into the villain organization, known as Team Galactic. Led by Cyrus, this is one of the most menacing villain groups in all of Pokemon. Team Galactic's goal is to reshape the entire Pokemon universe using the Creation Trio. Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina are your legendaries for this game, and they are an awesome group. Known as the Creation Trio, these Pokemon shape space, time, and antimatter. What makes them so cool is that Giratina is essentially just the devil of the Pokemon world. Their impact on the story is what makes them so incredible. Another thing that makes this region stand out is the Elite Four, specifically the battle with Cynthia, which is known as one of the hardest champion battles in the series. Cynthia's team is so menacing and perfectly balanced, it caused me to literally break my DS as a child. But Diamond and Pearl have a lot of problems. The biggest problems with these games is they play so slow. Pokemon battles take a very long time, and you can't speed up the animations to make it go any quicker. Also, if you like Fire-type Pokemon, this is not the game for you. There are almost no Fire types in this game if you don't pick Chimchar. Now, these were the first games on the console, so there were going to be some bugs that needed to be worked out with the formula, so I give these games a little bit of slack when it comes to performance issues, but as far as game design, they needed to have a better balance of Pokemon. And these complaints didn't fall on deaf ears. The release of Pokémon Platinum removed almost all of the issues with the game. Pokémon Platinum released in Japan on September 13th, 2008, and in North America on March 22nd, 2009. Similar to how Pokemon Crystal and Pokemon Emerald were the third games of their respective region, Pokemon Platinum is the ideal way to experience the 4th generation on the DS. Pokemon Platinum keeps the same story, but just changes it enough where it flows better. They introduced Cyrus earlier, so you have more of an attachment to him and Team Galactic as a whole. They also improved the amount of Pokemon that were available, including more fire types. The most important change though is that the game runs so much faster than Diamond and Pearl. It's like a night and day difference when you compare the two. This game was also more difficult than Diamond and Pearl, which is nice because those games, while lightly challenging at certain points, were not as difficult as some fans may have wanted. I found the gym leaders to be more challenging because they have Pokemon of their actual types. The Distortion World is one of the coolest locations added to a Pokemon game, and I wish they would do more with it in other titles. One of the best things that was added to Platinum though was the return of the Verse Seeker and the ability to re-challenge gym leaders. This made the post-game feel much more fleshed out and playable. The changes to the game engine were also brought into the next games, HeartGold and SoulSilver. I already have a full video on HeartGold and SoulSilver, so this is going to be a much more dumbed down version, but if you want a more detailed analysis on that game, feel free to take a look at the channel. Pokemon HeartGold and SoulSilver released in Japan on September 12th, 2009, and in North America on March 14th, 2010. HeartGold and SoulSilver are remakes of Gold and Silver, which came out on the Game Boy Color and takes everything that was great about them and makes it even better. The coolest part about these games is that the Pokemon get to follow you wherever you go, and it adds a layer of connection to your team that is not possible in other games. These games not only give you all of the Johto region, but all of the Kanto region as well, meaning it's a 2-for-1 special. The main complaint about this game is that having 2 regions adds a lot of leveling issues for your Pokemon. Your Pokemon are going to be very low level by the time you fight the Elite Four, which makes it seem like less of a journey. Some people will say that Kanto is just there to prop up Johto because it's hard to stand on its own, and I can understand that to a point, but Johto is still a super engaging region and had some of the best battles in the series. The battle with Red at the end of the game is one of the hardest fights in Pokemon, and to some is looked upon as the best battle in the series. This was the second time that Pokemon had remade a game for newer hardware, and I think they did a really good job keeping what was great about the originals and adding new things that were introduced on the DS. HeartGold and SoulSilver are looked upon as some of the best games in the series and are up there in the conversation with the next titles. Pokemon Black and White released in Japan on September 18th, 2010, and in North America on March 6th, 2011. These are the first of the 5th generation Pokemon games and are known by a large number of fans as where the series really hit its peak. Pokemon Black and White are so refreshing to the series, and they play as if they're their own games entirely. Black and White don't allow you to use any Pokemon outside of the region in the base game. This was divisive at first to some fans because people like to use their favorite Pokemon from other regions to play in the modern games, but this forced fans to try new Pokemon and build connections with Pokemon that they might not have tried previous. This forced me out of my comfort zone, and I got to try a bunch of new Pokemon that have become favorites of mine to this day. Not only did this game look incredible visually, it also had an incredible soundtrack. The Unova region feels so alive throughout the game, and it makes playing these games something so special. The game focused extremely hard on the story and made something truly incredible. The main antagonists are Team Plasma, and they have the goal to release all Pokemon from captivity and liberate Pokemon from humanity altogether. Led by N and Ghetsis, Team Plasma's real goal was to make Ghetsis the only Pokemon trainer so he could take over the land of Unova. N is the king of Team Plasma and has the strange ability to communicate with Pokemon, which he was using to liberate Pokemon from mankind. Throughout the game, you get to see how Team Plasma uses propaganda and fear to make people agree with their ideals. As you continue through the game, you get to experience a truly beautiful region. Unova is full of incredible moments, like fighting Volcarona for the first time. As you progress through the game, you get to see the fall of Team Plasma and watch as the organization crumbles. It's stories like this that make Pokemon such a special series and keeps Black and White held to the highest regard. The last main series games to come out for the DS were Black and White 2, which released on June 23rd, 2012 in Japan and October 7th, 2012 in North America. These games take place 2 years after the events of Black and White and are direct sequels to the first games. These games expanded on the Unova region, adding 5 new towns to the game. The story revolves around the split of Team Plasma, where half of them followed N and half of them followed Ghetsis. Ghetsis is still as evil as ever and plans on using the legendary dragon Kyurem to freeze over all of the Unova region. This game introduced the DNA Splicer, which is used to combine either Reshiram or Zekrom with Kyurem and create these cool Digimon-looking Pokemon. In my opinion, though this game's story wasn't as good as Black and White's, it's still an incredible game. This game allowed for Pokemon from other generations to be used throughout the story, which was great because in the first games that wasn't an option. This game also offered the Pokemon World Tournament, which is, in my opinion, the best post-game content for any Pokemon ever. Having a bracket-style elimination tournament against gym leaders and Elite Four and champions from all different regions is extremely refreshing and interesting to do in the postgame. The main series Pokemon games really hit their stride on the DS and all had their own unique charm that made them so fun even to this day. It's easy to see why people think this is the best era of Pokemon. Both generations 4 and 5 shined in their own ways and gave fans incredible memories, and having the ability to play through Gen 2 makes the DS era of Pokemon something truly special. If you made it this far into the video, thank you for watching. I hope that you and your family have an incredible day, and if you like what you saw, please subscribe.